Today, we're going to take the complex topic of building a cybersecurity framework in an organization and break it down into a simpler, more relatable concept, which is car parts. Yes, just basic car parts needed to build a car or motorized vehicle. And I know I'm getting some skepticism now about how I plan on doing this because cars and security really have nothing in common. And there are also so many different types of cars out there. How could I ever compare all of them to a security framework? Well, there are many types of security frameworks living out there in the wild as well. But we'll get into that a little later. But first, let's talk about NIST and use the framework set forth by the National Institute of Standards and Technology as our base security framework example. So NIST has been around for a while, but newest version 2.0, is broken up into 6 functions. You've got govern, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So think of that function list as just like parts of a car. Each of those parts play a crucial role in building a security program in an organization, just like car tires, a steering wheel, a car battery, doors, seat belts, and an engine would play a crucial role in the build of a car. Now let's dive into the first function, govern. So looking at our car analogy, govern in the NIST framework would be like planning the car build before you actually start building the car. It's about making a clear strategy, setting safety rules, deciding who does what, and keeping an eye on progress. This ensures that the car building process stays on track and meets its goals. Now on the cybersecurity side, govern means setting up rules, understanding organizational context and the risks within, and how you're going to manage those risks. For an organization, it involves things like making sure everyone knows their roles, creating a risk management strategy, creating and reviewing policies, and just kind of like overseeing how everything works and is done within the organization. Now moving on to identify. When you plan to build a car, identify is like figuring out what you need for the type of car that you are building. That's deciding on how fast it should go, what features it should have, and what parts are necessary to design that specific type of car. So shifting into the security side of identify, it means knowing your organization's risk and identifying the assets that could be at risk. Now, once you identify the assets, then you need to understand what type of data those assets are storing, how and where that data is being processed, and how it's being transmitted. And assets can even be people, and not really the people themselves, right? But their identities within the organization, as that can determine what type of access they have to that data. So we've identified everything and assessed the risks around what we have identified. Now we need to figure out how we are going to protect it. So protection systems in a car build would be like installing essential safety features, such as like airbags, lane departure systems, maybe brakes. I mean, honestly, would you consider purchasing a car that came without brakes? No one is going to do that. And just like no one is going to buy a car with no brakes, no one is going to want to work with a business that won't protect their data. So similar to the cybersecurity side, protect means putting up defenses like encryption for data storage and data transmission. It's like ensuring doors in publicly accessible areas have locks on them to prevent theft. It's like setting up WAFs, web access firewalls, in front of your company's website and ensuring that users have multi-factor authentication to validate their identities before they access your organization's data. Protection also involves providing proper security and awareness training for your employees. It helps them be better prepared to protect themselves from those phishing emails and scam calls. Now let's move on to the detect part. With your car, you want to make sure that your car has sensors to detect problems and that they warn you about them in the right way. So a low fuel light, take for example, you need that, right? Or when engine issues are detected, you will see that annoying yellow check engine light turn on. For cybersecurity, detect transitions into that area of being able to detect breaches and compromises that occurred in your organization. Tools like an endpoint detection and response platform, EDR, and a network detection and response system, NDR, are used to perform this ongoing detection and analysis of anomalies or indicators of compromise in your organization's assets and network. NIST defines this process as continuous monitoring and adverse event analysis, which is basically checking your organization on a daily to see if bad guys hacked you. So once you actually detect the bad guy stuff, how do you respond to it? Well, in relation to a car, when you have a low fuel light, you put gas in it. If you have a check engine light, you call your mechanic. If you have a lane departure system and the car detects that you're leaving your lane, it will beep at you. And in the more advanced systems, your car will respond by taking you back into that lane. It's about how you or the car are going to respond to take action to fix the problem. My last car had backup sensors that would apply the brakes if it detected I got too close to an object. It responded with the intent of keeping me and the in-path object or person safe by stopping the car. Well, on the cybersecurity side, the goal of the respond function is to minimize the damage of the attack and get things back to normal operations as fast as possible. This can be done by having incident response playbooks in place to quickly react to a cyber attack or security compromise. On the technology side, the playbooks can be a part of a SOAR platform, which is essentially a stack of technology systems working together for security orchestration, security automation, and security response. SOAR. Taught you a new word. On the people side, your organization can implement security tabletop exercises where they gather key organizational stakeholders to practice incident response. It's basically low-key simulating different breach or attack scenarios and then testing the effectiveness of the responses. And finally, there's the recover function. And after a car accident, recovering is about fixing the car so that it runs smoothly again. Similarly, in cybersecurity, recovery means restoring systems and data after a cyber attack. It's about getting things back to normal and making sure everything works the way it did before the attack or breach occurred. And hopefully at this level, you ensure that functional and tested backups are available so that you can restore any corrupted or lost data. Then once your systems are back online, you can focus on fixing the exploited vulnerabilities throughout your organization just to make sure it doesn't happen again. And also, depending on the type of data loss or data breach that occurred, there may be some regulatory compliance that would require your organization to disclose details of that breach to your employees or your customers. So hopefully, you also included your PR team in those table talks we talked about a little earlier. So now that we have a little bit of understanding about what a framework looks like using our car comparison, let's have some fun and talk about the variations of frameworks and how they can be unique just like different cars. So first up, NIST. When I think of the NIST cybersecurity framework, I think of Ford, the OG of American cars, and specifically the Ford Model A through Model T. Now, the Ford Model A was the first car produced by the Ford Motor Company, which later evolved to the Model T, becoming one of the most reliable and widely used vehicles of its time. Now, interestingly enough, they were both born within the same decade, as NIST was founded in 1901 and the first Model A was sold in 1903. But NIST really got established in 2014 when the US government said,
"We need some type of formal cybersecurity framework,
CSF,
that we and other organizations can abide by."
And NIST was like,
I got you, bro.
So NIST kind of set the bar for being the mainstream cybersecurity framework for the government. And at its origin, it was mostly set up for use by organizations that dealt with critical infrastructure like water and electricity and that type of stuff. So it had to be reliable. But just like Ford did, over the years, NIST also evolved and began being adopted by the private sector organizations. It started off with version 1.1, and now it's on version 2.0, and it's made itself highly customizable and allows organizations, depending on the size, to quickly implement its controls and use it as a gauge to measure and mature itself. So now we have ISO 27001, and the first thing that comes to mind is BMW, specifically the M3. Now let me explain. ISO 27001 is an international standard. So from an international or global level, it provides a structured approach to managing information security. Now, how does that correlate to the M3? Well, in my opinion, BMW is the benchmark for building reliable, daily driver performance cars. The M3 being its most popular and widely adopted, and they are well respected at a global level. So if you decided to adopt ISO 27001, you can use it in the United States, you could use it in Europe, you could use it wherever based on the needs of your customer as it's adopted globally. So transitioning now to the SOC2. The SOC2 can be very tech-focused, and it's designed for service organizations. It leans into trust service criteria, and having a SOC2 really allows your organization to provide some assurance to its customers that their data is being handled securely and reliably. But as a SOC2 is focused on service organizations, the first thing I think of when I think of a service vehicle is a minivan. and more specifically, the Chrysler Pacifica. Minivans overall are practical, reliable, and designed to meet the needs of a wide range of families, right? But the Pacifica is on another level when it comes to technology and convenience. It's also an American-made car, which aligns very well with the SOC2 because it's mainly used in the United States, as it's managed by the AICPA, which is the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. And now we have our fun one, HITRUST. It's a clown car, guys, okay? It's a little Volkswagen Beetle that pulls over on the corner and all the clowns come popping out. Now, not to say that the framework itself is a joke, because in all honesty, it was originally intended for the healthcare industry, which is a good thing, and it was designed as a PHI framework. But over time, it expanded its scope, and now it maps to multiple authoritative sources like PCI, NIST, ISO, GDPR, and many more. So the good part about its many mappings is that it makes it really comprehensive, but at the same time increases its complexity and sometimes cumbersomeness when you're trying to implement it. Like right now, HITRUST CSF version 11 has over 600 plus elements across 182 requirement statements. That's a lot of clowns popping out of that car. All right, so what about you? Have you had an opportunity to work with any cybersecurity frameworks? And if so, what would you compare yours to? Drop some comments in the chat. Let's start a conversation about it. So thanks again for watching. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and hit subscribe for that future content. Security Sol out.